Well, welcome in today, Mr. Micheal Hale, our current Barren County Judge Executive. Time's dwindling away to the end of the year, and we wanted to sit down with you and talk a little bit about this past term, the last couple of terms even, if you'd like. But first, how are you today?
I'm great.
Good. As a lot of folks know, of course, the election was not necessarily in your favor, and you've had 2 terms as Barren County Judge, so that obviously is a total of 8 years. Talk a little bit about the last 4 years. What has it been like for you being in office here in Barren County?
Well, the last 4 years have been way more comfortable than the first 4 years because you go through a learning process, and I've learned so much. From taking office to doing the day-to-day operations of the fiscal court duties, serving on countless boards and commissions, it's not a 9-to-5 job. It's not a 7-to-3. I mean, it's something you have to devote a lot of time to if you're going to do it right. And I've done that. I have devoted my time where it's needed, and I feel that I've went above and beyond with some of that as well. So, and I'll go back to what I just said about the operations of county government. January 1, you start working on something. It's like a revolving door. January 1, the next year comes back around, you start on that same thing again. Just a different year. So. I've met more people in my second term than I did my first term, which will be long life friendships, and I'm very appreciative of that. But county government is just something that everyone needs to be involved in as it relates to your community. That way there's so many people that think they know until they actually get in on the inside of it, and then you learn firsthand. So, but hey, I'm blessed. I've been able to serve at the highest level of our county political spot, and a lot of folks can't say that. And a lot of folks have tried to do that, and a lot of folks have wanted to do that. But hey, again, I'm blessed, and I'm very appreciative of that.
When you think about some of the higher points in your time as county judge, what would you say?
So, like anyone on the outside coming in, you have ideas. But I think one of the first things that was very shocking to me when I took office in 2015 was the financial situation of the county. For a county this size, and basically, as the saying now, paycheck to paycheck. The bonding capacity was very low. I understood why capital projects weren't happening, because the county couldn't bond to help with capital projects. So that was something that we had to get a rein on really quickly, because the county was borrowing money just for day-to-day operations, and that's not good for a county our size and our tax base. So I immediately started talking to other judge executives around our region and counties that were equal to Barren County tax base wise, and trying to see some of the things that they were doing. And the financial situation I really feel good about now, because as those saying, we're leaving it better than we found it. Being able to provide opportunities for young people in our community, that was always a goal of mine, not even when I was in the emergency services, is for young folks to know and understand aspects of your county, your cities, just put faces with names. And being able to create internships with the students. When I started in 2015, there's now students that have already went to college, graduated, and they're already working with their master's degrees. And I still stay in touch with them. And now seeing the new group coming on, and that's proud moments for me, and being able to, having a small part of their futures, small part, and just hope you've helped them out. I've always been geared towards the young person that didn't have the opportunity and trying to give them the opportunity. But being able to do that, being able to replace some much needed infrastructure in our community, just helping out nonprofit organizations, bringing some of them to the forefront as resources in our community. In the past 8 years, we've had floods, we've had some tornadoes and straight line winds to hit northern part of our county. We're very fortunate to have resources in our community that they're not just Monday through Friday, they're 7 days a week, and they're willing to help any way they can. And some of those really focus on the youth in our community, which, again, I'm all about that. I'm all about helping them. But I guess I go back to that, making the friendships with folks that I didn't even know until I came into office, and being able to have great conversation with them, whether they're older or younger. But again, I've really enjoyed my time.
One of the things you mentioned there was all of the parts or components of county government, and the role as judge, of course, being the highest point. But talk about some of your versatility. I know some of that's been paid attention to, being able to fit into different roles. Talk about why that's an important part of the judge's role.
Well, I'm a hands-on. I'm behind the desk when I need to be, but I'm also a hands-on. So obviously your fiscal court clerk you have to have that to hold fiscal court. County has to have treasurers. You don't necessarily have to have deputy judge executives, but you have to have someone in a role that is spearheading the incoming business of the day. And so I never was a large government person. I only hire what we need when we need, but I always wanted to be prepared. Now, it doesn't necessarily work with fiscal court clerk or treasurer, but when you talk about emergency management, parks and rec, code enforcement, solid waste, transportation, I always kept myself ready to fill in if I need to. Obviously, coming from the emergency services, filling in for emergency management, there was no problem for me because I had the certifications, and I still have the certifications to take care of what needs to be taken care of. So, there was always this from day one. Again, I use firm, fair, consistent, and I've always used that in emergency services. And I've always said, when I hear someone say that's not my job, well, it is. It's everyone's job, because if this person doesn't do it, then the next person needs to pick up and get the task done. And I've always been that way. And it comes back to the raising part. But if there's something needs to be done, we're not going to wait till Monday to do it. If it's Thursday or Friday, we're going to get it done right then. So again, I've tried to be as versed as I can to fall in those roles when need be. Some people in the community look down on that, but to me, at the end of the day, you're saving tax money by doing that, because you're still paying me. If I'm physically able to go help, you don't want me just to sit at home. I don't think you do, but I've been blessed to do that as well. Still blessed to help the emergency services out when need to, whether it's helping lift someone or do CPR on someone, or it could be a fire somewhere and I can go help in whatever capacity that is. But again, I've enjoyed it.
One part of leadership is the downfall of criticism. Clearly, there's been quite a bit of that recently.
Sure.
And depending on where folks stand on that, I'll try to keep this in the middle,
Sure.
obviously. But talk a little bit about criticism in the role of judge, and if there are any specific pieces of criticism you want to address in this interview. Maybe someone's listening, you haven't had that chance to vocalize to someone, hey, this is the way that I feel about it. Now is that time.
Well, I'll go back to what I said earlier about everyone should run for an office and learn about county government. That way, when you're out here having a conversation, you don't think you know, you actually know. And so, but being in an elected official role, you're going to hear a lot of criticism. You're going to hear a lot of corrective criticism, which is good, very good, because, if you make this mistake, don't make it twice. The one thing I can say about our team in Barren County is when someone criticizes something that we are doing, we will look back, and some of the first questions we'll ask, what did the law say? Were we following what the law says? Were we following what our operation procedures say for the county? And if we're doing that, I'm good. They're good. Because, we're not bending the law. We're not breaking the law. We're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. There is, took a lot of criticism over horses, okay? That was coming from a source of one-sided source. You can argue the fact, but we have the facts. And if we had to do that again, animal control's in charge of things like that. The city and county have an interlocal agreement. They're a sworn officer. A judge executive has no seizing powers in the state of Kentucky. But looking back in the history, 2 or 3 terms ago, about 3 terms ago, there was actually horses took in by the county, and there was no animal control. So, but nothing was ever said about that. So anyway, but hey, if it had to be done again, the animals is what was important, and that went through a process in the judiciary process, and the judges made their ruling on it. And again, I wouldn't hesitate to take the phone call from animal control to do it again. And other than that, day-to-day criticism, again, you can't listen to social media because 9 times out of 10, the person that's saying what they're saying hasn't done their homework, or that person don't even know you and has never tried to introduce themselves to know you. But I will say this, Brennan, I've been able to, since the election, run into some of those folks that were criticizing on social media. And instead of them introducing themselves to me, I'll say, hey, I'm Micheal Hale, and I'll put my hand out and try to meet someone and then have the conversation. Well, what did you mean by this, or what did you mean by that? And, 9 times out of 10, they'll say it was a mistake, or I didn't mean to, or something along those lines. But, if you're in a political role, whether it's judge executives, state representative, mayor, or whatever, get ready for some criticism because it's going to come.
You talked about growth at the beginning of this interview. What would you say is the one single point of growth, if you had to pick one, from 8 years ago to now? Where have you grown the most?
So, I'm going to say more patience. It's always been instilled that a good leader's a good listener, and I've always listened. But what I've always tried to do is, if someone had a great idea for a problem that we're having, and it may be a good idea, solution, whatever you want to call it, I would have the patience to let's try that. Let's go with that person's idea, because the worst thing's going to happen, it's not going to work. So then we'll try something else. So I haven't been afraid to fail, because everyone fails in life, but just having more patience, whether it's with the general public, whether it's with your family, whether it's with whoever. But and I guess age kind of humbles you a little bit as well. But I think that's where I have grown the most.
One of the big things that we talk about with politics, and often is a topic folks run on, is job recruitment and things like that. What have you found about that process that maybe you didn't know about beforehand?
So when someone asks me that, the first thing I say is, okay, we are one of 120 counties in the state of Kentucky that we are in competition with. We're also one of 14,000 cities in the United States that we are in competition with. You know, if you get this great idea and you think, well, this company will be a great fit here, you don't just call them and then they show up the next day. That's not how it works. There's a lot that goes into recruiting, but recruiting is not the most important thing. The most important thing is taking care of your existing industries in your community and seeing how they want to grow. What is their needs, wants, and desires? Then you move on to the recruiting part elsewhere. But taking care of local is one of the most important things. And listen, I've been one of those folks. Yeah, we don't have enough jobs. You're right. But that process is tough. And I know people will say, well, we need to offer more incentives and we need to offer this and offer that. That's fine. But the one thing, if you start doing that, you have to do it for everyone to be fair. And then you need to go back and offer it to the ones that you didn't offer it to before you started doing that, to be fair with everyone. So, again, that's not solely the responsibility of a judge executive. It's not solely the responsibility for the mayors. That's why we have an economic authority with a director and a board of directors that each government entities assign people to that. You know, just for the past couple of years, I have assigned 2 magistrates from our court to serve on our economic authority. Who better to watch the tax money than people that were elected to watch the tax money? So, again, it's been very eye-opening for them as well. So, when it comes to recruitment of jobs, it's tough. It's a tough world out there.
Some of those industries that have left our community over the last 8 years, just while we're talking about your term, not that it's all your fault or anything like that, but just to say taking care of those existing, would you say that all efforts were made to take care of those, or would you say that some were just going to leave regardless of what we could have done locally?
Yeah, I believe it's both, Brennan. I really do. You take the Donnelly's Corporation, you know, they were a magazine. Everything's pretty much moved to a cell phone. People don't necessarily look at magazines much anymore because they've got the capabilities of their phone. But I know that every employee was met with there to see what could be done for them moving forward, because I was part of that process. The Dana Corporation, same thing. We did everything we could do for those folks as well. And again, some of those things were being shipped elsewhere because it was cheaper to do business elsewhere. So, but every effort was put in, because I have personally went and spoke to companies. If I heard in the community that we're not happy here or this isn't working out with us, you know, I've sat down with plant managers and they bring their CEOs in, and I have personally said, hey, what can we do better? You know, but a lot of times it surprises them to see the elected officials sitting in front of them and not the economic folks sitting in front of them. But I always used it as a, listen, I don't have time to wait on other people, because it's a concern to me and it should be a concern to everyone. So again, we've responded very quickly to some of these companies that have left. But the side that people don't really talk a lot about was we added almost 400 jobs in the past couple of years to a community that already had almost 500 open jobs. And there's several $1 million worth of investment there too, like almost $200 million worth of investment just in creating these 400 jobs. So, but that's not the piece everyone wants to talk about. We go back to the criticism side. I guess it would be easier if we had a TV station that was right here in our community and was constantly putting it out there that look at this expansion, that expansion. The one thing you got to understand, I've seen that TV station put out the same expansion 3 times, and it was new all 3 times as 3 different expansions, but it wasn't. It was just one. So, and I've kept up with that throughout the state of Kentucky. With my relationship with Frankfort, I sort of knew where some companies were going, the ones that were looking here. I'll just use this as the example, the Tyson's industry. It came down between Barren County and Warren County. They wanted to be here. We just didn't have our sewer and water in place in our new industrial park. Warren County did. That automatically cut 6 to 8 months off their time to start building and be in operation. So and that was something that we worked really hard. So anyway, it's difficult. It's difficult. It's difficult to listen to what people have to say about it. But when you truly know the truth about the situations, it's easier to deal with.
If you had to give one piece of advice to the incoming judge or magistrates or any local leader or anyone, I guess, to any degree, what would that be?
There would be several pieces of advice I would give. But I guess the one important, and it's something that I never did, but don't make a promise you can't keep. Because that person will say, well, so-and-so promised me, and then they'll go tell so-and-so, and then next thing you know, it's all over the community. Well, you promised them, and you don't know if you can deliver on that promise. And I have said this, keep a good relationship with the media. Be straight up with the media. If they ask you a question, tell them what you know and tell them the truth, and don't hide the truth, because what I've learned about the media, they'll do their research and they'll find the truth one way or the other. And that's no disrespect to the media, but the media can be a huge asset for you if you utilize them correctly. But just, know your limitations, know what you can and cannot do legally, because that's very important. I have been blessed to have a 30-year fiscal court clerk, a 20-some-year deputy judge executive who I can bounce ideas off of, or I can say, can I do this or not? And they'll say, nope, you can't do that, or yes, you can do that. And I listen to them. One thing about it, I don't go against them because they've been there longer than I have, and I respect that.
One of the big things that has been touted with this election cycle has been the relationship outside of Barren County, regardless if it's with other counties, with the state, or even with some of our federal leaders. Mm. In your term here at the state level, just for review, when you came into office, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt Bevin was coming into office as governor thereabout. Is that correct? Was Matt Bevin?
Governor Steve Beshear was governor at the time. Yeah.
And then
Mr. Bevin come in.
Governor, and then of course Mr. Beshear now.
Right.
So you have been in office now with both parties, or the two major parties.
Correct.
That are likely to be either or. Mm-hmm. So how does that influence our ability to do things here in Barren County? Well,
it has a lot of influence on what party you are. I've never looked at party, especially when I started looking at leadership from other judge executives, because I'll tell you right now, the 2 top judge executives were both Republican when I came into office that were mentoring me. And I appreciate the things that they've done for me and taught me and showed me. But I always had I went to Frankfort when I needed to go to Frankfort. I wasn't going to waste taxpayer money just going to Frankfort to hang out with people or go to lunch with people. I always had the mindset of inviting Frankfort to us. Checking out that schedule of that field representative and who they could bring to us. and it's worked in several areas. You know, the first 6 months I was judge, I was put on a state board, the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board, which I learned a lot. I led a lot of people around the state of Kentucky. When Governor Bevin come in, people said, well, you're not going to get anything in Frankfort. You're not going to get a thing in Frankfort. Well, that's not really true, because I'd already established some relationships there. I remember having their transportation team come to a rural secondary road that I told them, I said, listen, I can bring you pictures, I can show you videos, but unless you come out here and truly get the feel of what I'm talking about, and they did, because a couple of them almost got run over during harvest time, and they was like, oh wow, you know, and they ended up funding the project. And so I can't say one gave me more than the other. It's been steady across the board, but I've never looked at who was Republican and who was Democrat. I've always looked at it as, let's just do the best for our county, our region, and our Commonwealth, and I've always got along with everyone.
Where are you headed now? So now that you are winding down as judge executive, this has been your life for 8 years going on. Where are you headed now?
Well, my love has always been in the emergency services. I'm still a young person. You know, leaving the emergency services, still wanting to help our community, serving in the capacity I am now, it's afforded me the opportunity to see where the greatest needs are. And if I can help out in those areas, you know, I just have to have my hands on something emergency service wise, because that just makes me feel like that I'm truly doing something, and I truly have worth about what I'm doing, and I don't know that that's what will happen, but I still want to be involved with some nonprofit organizations that I feel like I've poured my heart into, and a lot of those is based around youth that they don't have the parents to raise them. They're either being raised by grandparents, or they don't have the adult guidance. You know, I want to be still involved with things like that, but I've lived here my whole life. I'm going to continue to live here till I'm done, and I just hope for the best for Barren County, and if I can be just a small part of anything, I'll give it my all to be that. But as far as politics, I won't be back in politics, so it's just, everyone needs a little dose of it, just so they'll have a better understanding when they have a conversation. So,
well, thank you for sitting down with us. We could have talked a lot more today, but just to hit some of those high points about your time as judge, some of the low points, thank you for addressing those, to be honest about that. And again, thank you for your service to our community, and we wish you the best.
Thank you, Brennan.